But when the Bible says, God said, let there be light, that light has given us all kinds of understandings of the special world in which we live. But there's something else about light that's just fascinating, and that is that light can be polarized. Let me show you what that means. Light has only one plane. Now what I mean by that is that light can go like this, or it can go like that, or it can go like that. It can go different ways, and that controls its polarization. Now you say, well, that doesn't make much sense to me. All right, let me show you something that I hope will make it clear. This is called a Polaroid lens. What I have here is a plastic material where the crystals, the molecules that make up the material, are arranged in this direction. And if you look carefully here, you can see there's a line which tells you how the crystals are arranged. And here's another one. It's just like that. Both lines are the same. So if I put the two crystals over each other, you can see through them. But watch what happens if I rotate one of these crystals. Wow, it got dark, didn't it? See, what's happening is that the light that comes through this one is in this plane. The other crystal, when I had it the same way, would also allow that to happen, but when I turn it like that, it blocks the light. Now what's interesting is that sometimes you can put crystals in between the lenses that will twist the light depending upon how energetic the light is. And remember, we've said that light has different colors because of different energies. So let's suppose I take a plain old piece of cellophane here off a candy bar, and I crunch that all up and I put it between here, and look, it's got different colors, doesn't it? Different colors, because what's happening is the crystals are twisting the light, the plane of the light. Let's do this another way. Look what I've got here. I've got a piece of glass that's got some salt crystals inside the glass. So what we did was we took a piece of glass, we put salt material in it, and then we put another piece of glass on top. And we're going to put this between the two lenses. And look what happens. Again, colors. Beautiful colors. Because what's happening is that the color of the material is determined by the energy, and the crystal twists the light. So polarized light lets us see colors. By the way, polarized light also helps us to tell what something's made of, because every material will twist the light differently. Let me show you something else that's interesting about polarized light. I've got a piece of glass here, and if we hold the glass up to the light will reflect off the glass. And as I turn that, you can see glare coming off of this. Now, the glare that's coming through is polarized. Let me explain this to you. Suppose that you and I are standing on the edge of a lake. And let's suppose that this is a rock, a flat rock. And there's a big lake out there, and I take this rock and I throw the rock. And when I throw the rock, it hits the water and it skips if I throw it this way. What happens if I throw it this way? You know what happens. It goes down into the water. It won't skip. And this is true of light. Light that is flat like that will bounce off the water, but only the light that's like that will bounce off. Light that is vertical, like this, will penetrate the water. So what happens is that reflected light is polarized light. All right, now we're going to let you do this for yourself. All right, what you're looking at right now on the camera is the piece of glass, and you can see the glare. And we're going to put a Polaroid in front of the camera now, and now we're going to rotate the Polaroid. And look what happens to the glare. As we rotate the Polaroid back and forth, the glare disappears. So the Polaroid blocks the glare. If the light is bouncing off in this direction, and if you have a Polaroid across your eye that is vertical, then the light can't come through. Do you understand now how your Polaroid sunglasses work? See, your Polaroid sunglasses have the crystals lined up like this. Glare is like this. So the Polaroids block the glare. And it's the nature of light. It's how light is made, how light is designed, how God made light that lets Polaroid sunglasses work and allows us to study crystals and to see all these neat things. And God also uses Polaroids in animals. Do you know that some turtles wear Polaroids? Yeah, I'm serious. Some turtles wear Polaroids. Let me tell you a story. I was visiting a friend in Florida one time, and he had a pond out there in front of his house. And the pond got kind of yucky, and he wanted to pump the pond out, and he wanted to dig it deeper. So he had his sons seine all the fish out of the pond and put them in big tanks, and then he started to pump the water out of the pond. Well, I visited him the night that he was doing this, and when I drove in, I looked out there, I said, wow, look at that. That pond's going dry. And look at the turtles. There must have been 200 or 300 turtles crawling around in the mud of this pond. And when I got up to the house and he told me what I was doing, I said, well, what you going to do with all those turtles? And he said, well, I called the county ag agent, and he said, don't worry about them, and that they'll take care of themselves. So I thought, well, that's kind of neat. Late that night, we came back to his house, and you know what? There was a herd of turtles. What do you call a whole bunch of turtles going one direction? A herd of turtles going across the driveway. I had to get out of the car and move the turtles off the driveway so he could get into his garage. Well, the next morning, we went down to see how the pond was doing, and we looked over there, and there's an interstate, a big path busted through and smashed through the yucca and the underbrush where all the turtles had gone. They'd all gone one direction, the same direction. Every single turtle went the same way. Well, we followed the path. And we got about 2 or 3 miles down the path, and there's another pond. We went back and looked at a map. If those turtles had gone any other direction than the way they went, they would not have gotten to water. But the way they went led them to the nearest pond. How did they know it was there? Answer, polarized light. Now think for a minute. The turtles have a Polaroid in their eyes. They wear sunglasses that lined up this way. Okay, so both eyes are lined up this way. So what will light do? Well, reflected light that is parallel to the ground. Remember, we've talked about how light is polarized when it's reflected. Reflected light will come through the lens of the turtle, through the cornea of the turtle. But all the other light that is vertical won't. So what happens? Well, the turtle's sitting there in the pond, water's all gone, saying, somebody took my water. Where'd my water go? And then he's looking around at the horizon, and he sees a shaft of polarized light, a bright light coming up from the nearest lake, and he just starts walking towards that nearest body of water. So turtles use Polaroids, and they can actually have the Polaroids work in such a way that it helps them locate their nearest body of water. Of course, they can get confused sometimes. Up where I live, up here in northern Indiana, one time there was a Kmart, and there was a big pond next to the Kmart, and the turtles were laying their eggs. And one night after they laid their eggs, they were trying to get back to their pond, and it was raining. And that parking lot was covered with water, which was reflecting the light, so there was polarized light, not just from their pond, but also from the Kmart parking lot. And a whole bunch of turtles ended up in the parking lot. But you have to understand that this is the way that the turtle's eyes work. All right, let's see how well you think now. I got a question for you I want you to think about. Did you know that geese have Polaroids? Yeah, just like the turtles. Except, instead of the Polaroids being like that, the Polaroids are like that. They have vertical Polaroids instead of horizontal Polaroids like the turtles. Wonder why. Can you figure that out? See if you can figure out why geese have vertical Polaroids. Now remember that geese migrate. They fly from northern areas to southern areas in the fall of the year, and then in the spring they fly back. And they fly under the clouds. So how do they know how to fly from one place to another? How do they know to get back to where they were the previous summer? Well, they use the sun and they use the moon, and apparently sometimes they use the Earth's magnetic field. But sometimes you can't see the sun and the moon if there's a big heavy cloud cover, unless you have Polaroids. Now think about this. Okay, the Earth's down here and here's a layer of clouds. Sunlight is falling on the clouds. The sunlight that is parallel to the clouds will bounce, reflect off the top of the clouds. And if you've ever been in an airplane up high above the clouds, you know it's pretty bright. The glare is huge. Pilots have to wear Polaroid sunglasses to protect them against the glare. The light that is vertical will penetrate through the clouds, just like throwing a flat rock like this will penetrate the water, whereas parallel to the water it will skip. So here's the goose flying around down here. The light from the sun is coming right through the clouds that is this way. The light coming this way is reflected off the clouds, so the goose can look up and he can see the sun and the moon right through the clouds. So he can still use the sun and the moon even on a totally cloudy day or night when your eyes wouldn't be able to tell where they were. By the way, we have used that now on airplanes and things like that to enable us to see through the clouds so that when we're flying places where the weather's bad, we can still see well enough to land the airplane. And we've done that because we have copied the design that God has built into living animals. We live in a wonderful world, and polarized light is one of the neat things that has made the world possible for all kinds of living things to exist in.